Hey everyone, welcome to Locked On Lakers for Tuesday. Brian Kamenetsky, Andy Kamenetsky. The Lakers getting some good news on the injury front for a change. That's next.
You are Locked On Lakers, your daily Los Angeles Lakers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you. Thanks to everybody for making Locked On Lakers your first listen of every day, Monday through Friday, no matter how or where you get your podcasts, always free, never behind a paywall. Locked On Lakers is on YouTube. It's where you can go to hang out with almost 22,000 subscribers, all of whom are riding high, Andy, on this 2-game win streak that the Lakers are on, with the potential for more as the Lakers at home tonight against a very slumpy Memphis squad that is missing a lot of their good players.
Excuse me. They're on a 1-game winning streak after spanking the Clippers.
Beating the Clippers doesn't count.
You know what's funny? I realized today on Twitter at Cam Brothers, after the Lakers beat the Clippers, I tweeted out, and this was obviously a joke, the Clippers are winless in the James Harden era. Like, James Harden, when the Lakers beat them, was not even officially a member.
He wasn't in uniform.
No, forget he wasn't in uniform. The trade was not even official at that point. Like, he was in the building, but at that point, for all intents and purposes, he was not even a Clipper. Like, he was in purgatory between Philly and LA. 12 days later, however, the tweet holds. That's
remarkably prescient you were, Andy. But what's funny, but it's like, who could have possibly, like, we all said, like, oh, well, what are they going to do with Westbrook and Harden? It's like, create conflict. They're dealing with it by pretending it's not an issue. We're just going to start everybody, they said, and it's not going to be a problem. And it is thus far working poorly.
Yeah, I imagine Ty Lue is eventually going to make a move, but in order to give yourself some degree of plausible deniability / cover, you have to at least do the thing where you give everybody the opportunity to have what you want, even though you know what they want, they cannot have because it won't work. It's like last year. We all said hanging into the season, Russ has to come off the bench. Like, he just has to. We've seen tangible evidence this doesn't work. Darvin Ham, because he wanted to get off to a good relationship with Russell Westbrook. He saw what happened between Russ and Frank Vogel just when apparently Vogel didn't thank him profusely enough for the champagne that Russ sent Mrs. Vogel and Mr. Vogel for their anniversary, the Vogels. Darvin Ham said, I'm going to give this an opportunity, giving Russell Westbrook the thing he wants, knowing damn well he's eventually going to be coming off the bench. But again, plausible deniability.
It is one of those things. I saw a stat from Tom Haberstroh today that said Harden this season, because when all of his games, are here like that, and like he has not yet made a shot in the restricted area yet. No layups, nothing in he's taking that restricted area thing very literally. Just not going in there. And look, I mean, the misery that surrounds the Clippers is not technically our lead story today, but I think it's one of those deals where Lakers fans will forgive the indulgence. It's just, I mean, it's the Harden part of it too. I don't hate the Clippers, but it's like this Harden thing is so obviously a terrible idea that I am enjoying it. But anyway, so the Grizzlies are in town tonight. That is an extremely winnable game, given all the personnel that Memphis is currently missing. And so it's an opportunity for the Lakers to get back over the 500 mark. They will do that without the services of Jared Vanderbilt. But, Andy, the Lakers did get some good news about Vanderbilt. He is now able to get back on the floor and do basketball stuff in preparation for returning. He hasn't played in a long time, and it's been a heel injury, so he can't just like start, but he got to ramp up, and he can begin the ramping.
Yeah, the exact phrasing from the Lakers update was Jared Vanderbilt has been reevaluated by Lakers team doctors and has been cleared to begin a return to play progression. Further details will be provided as appropriate. It's obviously good news. It's also extremely vague good news. I saw a lot of Laker fans on Twitter or in the comment section of the YouTube channel angry that it's a statement without really saying much of anything in terms of what people want to know. And
Correct.
look, the Lakers are not a terribly transparent franchise about this stuff, particularly in the LeBron AD era. And, to some degree, they don't really owe us transparency.
No, I don't blame. There's no winning in this.
Well, here's what I will say, because what really matters is the medical stuff, and if it's being taken care of properly, the player's actual progress, etc. Where I do think the Lakers sometimes don't do themselves favors with being so cagey is it leads to a lot of speculation, which we both know for a fact they get very touchy about. But also, as we saw last season, when they weren't up front, when Anthony Davis returned to the court after that stress reaction, that he was able to play, but because this was an active injury recovery process, there was concern about recurrence or setback, so he wasn't able to play in back-to-backs. That would have been really straightforward and easy to explain.
No, 100%. That part of it, that there are certain things that they
did AD a massive disservice.
Correct. The basic problem is you don't want to say, he's been reevaluated and he'll be able to play in a week. Because let's say Vanderbilt can't play in a week, it takes 10 days or 12 days. Now it's like, what if it takes 2 weeks? Now you're either making your medical staff look terrible, or you make Jared Vanderbilt look like he's soft and squishy and can't, because that's what most Lakers fans think is that Vanderbilt is soft. But you understand my point. Like, there's the world we live in.
But that was really a problem though with AD.
It is
Laker fans
because they actually do.
Right. And the reality is AD was not holding himself back. This was a medical decision.
Yes. They could be smarter with how in terms of details, like that's the sort of detail where it's important to you're just explaining to people what you're doing. But timelines, there's just no clear. This was one of these things for Lakers fans who may not understand. This is a moment in injury history where you have, it's a binary. Your two choices for reports that you're going to get from the Lakers in a situation like this, and it'll come up again with Gabe Vincent, hopefully not with LeBron. The Lakers, we did not Monday, no updates on LeBron. We'll probably find out much closer to game time tonight whether or not he's going to be available.
Lakers didn't practice today too,
right.
So that was one of the places
where no practice on Monday. So the binary here for the Lakers is Vanderbilt was reevaluated and can't start doing things, or Vanderbilt was reevaluated and can start. Those were the only options on the option tree. It is a tree with very few branches. These were your choices. Of those two, this was the good one. Vanderbilt can begin doing things. So it's a really good deal for the Lakers. One that we can all start to get happy about. So we'll talk a little bit more about what it means, because this has a tremendous impact, hopefully, eventually when he gets back, on the Lakers defense, which has struggled mightily early in games, and particularly could impact the backcourt of Russell and Reaves. So all of that, plus a look at the upcoming schedule next.
Locked on Lakers is brought to you by Ibotta, and big holidays mean big family get-togethers, but you don't want to spend all that money on the Thanksgiving spread without getting anything back in return. With Ibotta, you can get your turkey and all of the favorite sides for free starting November 1st. So we are about halfway into this thing for the fourth year in a row. Ibotta is giving 100% cash back on your Thanksgiving feast. Just add the offers in the app to redeem everything. All you have to do is shop at your favorite retailers, upload your receipts, and Ibotta gives you cash back on hundreds of grocery items, from produce to personal care to pantry goods, so you can make sure you are beating inflation no matter what you're purchasing. Other apps, they give you points that nobody ever gets around to using. It's confusing. With Ibotta, you get real cash back that can be added to your bank account, PayPal, gift cards, and you also earn real cash back on hundreds of online brands and retailers as well. Shopping with Ibotta, including Lowe's, Macy's, Sephora, Best Buy, and more. Download the Ibotta app. Use that code LOCKED to get 100% cash back on your Thanksgiving dinner. Again, going on right now. Go to the App Store, Google Play Store, download the free Ibotta app, use that code LOCKED, IBOTTA, in the Google Play and App Store. Again, use that code LOCKED.
So tonight's game, Andy, is another installment of the in-season tournament. The Lakers definitionally are somewhere at the top of Group A. Are we Group A?
I don't know.
Whatever it is.
I'm not. I don't know off the top of my head. I don't even know if it that feels like incidental, like the group.
Yeah, what letter? It's true. I
don't care if they're A, B, C, or Z. I mean, it doesn't matter.
That's probably true. Whatever group we're in, but the Lakers have played 2 games in this tournament, and they are 2-0. And for all the talk of whether or not people care, don't care, whatever, if it works or it doesn't work or whatever, I did on Monday get an email you and I have been on various mailing lists for ESPN for dozens of years at this point. It seems like, both because we worked there, we still work there for the radio station 710 ESPN in LA. But this is the largest font that I've ever seen in an email from ESPN. It just says viewership up 55%. It's massive. And it's a picture of KD and LeBron. And it is pointing out as if, Jimmy Pitaro came into my living room and is screaming it into my ear that viewership on this tournament is up 55% versus games in the comparable window of early November last year. So I guess it's working. Like, people, whether it's they're tuning in to be blinded by the courts in Chicago and Houston, or just kind of find this intriguing, it is generating the type of interest that the NBA is trying to do for early November in a league where everybody says it doesn't start until Christmas.
Okay, I just looked it up. A, they are West Group A. B, I believe they're just
Nice.
1-0. This Memphis game will be the second one that play.
No, the Phoenix game. I thought the Phoenix
was number
game.
1.
Right, and then Portland was
not an in-season tournament game.
But they're in the group.
They're in the group, but I don't believe.
No, you're right. You're right. I jumped the gun.
Just 1-0. But what we do know is that currently, once you look back on the history books and you start thinking about the best players in season tournament history, Cam Reddish is off to a fantastic start, being like all in-season, tournament, first team, second team, third team, an award I just made up. But we learned today, along with Anthony Davis on Monday, the NBA announced that they were guys receiving votes for Western Conference.
Yeah, they were nominees.
Yeah,
Anthony Davis and Cam Reddish.
Obviously this happened for Anthony Davis roughly 1 billion times, but for Cam Reddish, it's a big deal, man. That's really cool.
It is one of those things where, like, I like to make fun of, NBA player of the week. Like Kevin Durant wins player of the week, and like, what does he do with that information? Like, does his mom get a bumper sticker that she can put on the car? My son was player of the week in the Western Conference. I don't know what it is. This, relatively low level acknowledgments for, say, somebody like LeBron James, who has multiple titles and multiple MVP awards. But if you had asked me at the beginning of the season,
scoring leader,
right, he has that too.
You know how many times, by the way, LeBron has been Western
player of the week?
It's player of the week.
Like in both, like I think it's something like 58 over the course of his career. Oh, higher than that.
Yep.
74.
Little lower, 67. He's also won in the month 46 times.
Okay, so just real
Plus
quick.
all-time leading scorer.
Right, he's also that. 67, you said?
67.
That is a calendar year plus. Of NBA Player of the Week awards. And the Player of the Month awards is 4 years worth of NBA Player of the Month awards.
LeBron's been really good.
Oh my God. Like, think about that for a second. He's won 4 years worth of NBA calendar. 52.
Kind of been his league since he's been here.
He is really, catching on. Maybe a first ballot Hall of Famer. I'm not sure.
Let's see how many Kobe has while you talk.
Okay. But like, if you had asked me at the beginning of the year, will Cam Reddish be nominated for an NBA Player of the Week award? Like, the over under on it. You got to put, $200 on it one way or the other. I don't know if our friends at the FanDuel Sportsbook were taking money on it, but if they were, I would have put it on no. And the fact that we're here, in the third week of the season or something like that. And, this is actually something that a lot of people were on the YouTube page Monday in reaction to Reddish's second straight really great game as the Lakers beat Portland on Sunday. We're saying, we weren't probably more me than you, I guess, not being complimentary enough to Reddish. Both of us acknowledging that he's played two really good games in a row. My big question is, and it has always been this way with Reddish, is can he be consistent enough to do this for more than a week, more than 2 weeks or whatever? Because it's not that Reddish has never had moments where he looked really good. That's why he's bounced around to multiple teams. Everybody's willing to take a shot on it because they've seen the good stuff. There's just never been any consistency to it where he carries it through from a week to a month to 2 months to a half season to a full season. That's why he was available to the Lakers at a minimum. So that's what I need to see. I mean, if people think that's harsh, I would disagree. But
either way, it is indicative of the fact that Reddish really has had a good week. He's really done well for himself. If nothing else, once Vando's back, Gabe Vincent's back, at the very least, he is going to be presenting Darvin Ham with some difficult decisions about how many minutes he gets, what to do with the rotation, which is exactly what you want to be doing in Cam Reddish's position. Also, Kobe won Player of the Week 33 times and only 16 Player of the Month awards compared to LeBron's. However, Kobe does have the extra ring. So There you go.
It's an interesting place for the Lakers to be when you start looking at guys like Reddish and how he'll be impacted, just to return to the Vanderbilt thing before we break again. There are a lot of players who theoretically could be impacted by Jared Vanderbilt returning, whether that's in a week and a half a week, whatever it might be.
6 months. The way they're caged. I don't think it's going to be.
No, I mean, I guess we don't know how much this ramp up, like
here's the
how
difference.
big of a ramp it is, but
like people will always have the worst case scenario fears like Kendrick Nunn. The difference is, to my recollection, we never even heard about a ramp up with Kendrick Nunn.
They just kept saying he can't do anything.
Right.
That's what I'm saying. It's a binary. Either you can start doing things or you cannot. And with Kendrick Nunn, the answer was always he cannot. And that's part of the reason the Lakers have stopped putting anything even kind of like a timeline on things. But, Vanderbilt's utility has been proven by his absence. And, as somebody who was not totally sure like what his role would be in the season, because the Lakers had filled in with so many different players and had so many options, and you could see situations where he would play a ton and you could see situations where his playing time could get squeezed. I think he's going to be back, and I think he's going to be back in the starting lineup. And Reddish is one of those guys that will be impacted by that, because in a world with Hachimura back in the lineup and Vanderbilt back in the lineup and a healthy LeBron, there aren't 30 plus minutes a night.
Vincent
for
eventually
Reddish
coming back if you want to treat Reddish as a guard.
Right. There just aren't 30 something minutes for him to play. And, this is another comment that somebody left on the YouTube page from me on Monday. It was like, he's not going to go
James
down.
Bell.
Yeah, thank you. He's not going to go down to 13 or 15 minutes, 12 minutes a night, 15 minutes. I was like, okay, maybe 13 minutes is too little. I don't know. But he's not going to be playing 27 either. And so I don't know if they're going to be 20 minutes a night for Reddish to be playing on a healthy roster. So can he, in a more limited role, play with the same level of confidence, play under control and all that, play like he has in the last two games and not like he did in the first, 5, we'll call it that, where he wasn't very good over those first few games. And, and the difference, I was looking up some net rating stats, and we'll talk about these when we get to the next segment, talking about D'Lo and Reaves. There has not been a player on the team that I could see with a bigger turnaround in his net rating over the last couple games compared to the first few than Reddish, who was deep underwater at the beginning, and the last few games has been fantastic. So we'll see how that goes. I am hoping it works out for him, and certainly Darvin Ham has deeply invested in the task of building up his confidence, Reddish's confidence, and I think the other players from LeBron with the corner three for the game that didn't go in, but the next one did. You saw a couple plays where Reaves dropped off the ball on Sunday's game for Reddish, teeing him up for shots that maybe he wouldn't have otherwise gotten. The team is invested in this as well. So we'll get to the backcourt next.
Locked On Lakers brought to you by FanDuel, and you can enjoy this NFL season with incredible offers from FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. New customers right now, you get $150 in bonus bets back with any $5 money line bet. That's $150 in bonus bets. If your team just wins, the one you pick, they win. You can use those bonus bets on spreads, player props, over-unders, futures, all sorts of fun stuff. The app is really easy to use. All these different options right at your fingertips. And of course, you can bet on NBA action. LeBron currently a 75-1 bet to win MVP, AD 40-1, Anthony Davis 11-1 to win Defensive Player of the Year.
Any odds on Cam Reddish for Player of the Week next week?
I don't know if they've gotten that far. LeBron is a 250-1 bet for Defensive Player of the Year. I'm just going to say right now, that's not a strong bet. Also, the folks at FanDuel, they wasted no time placing Austin Reaves among the 6 Man of the Year candidates. Just 2 games off the bench. He is 20-1 right now, 7th overall. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and enjoy the NFL season. Enjoy sports with an offer you don't want to miss. FanDuel, an official partner of the NFL.
So I know for you, Andy, this combination of D'Lo and Reaves in the backcourt it's been a big topic of conversation for fans, and we get a lot of comments about it on the YouTube page, at Twitter, at Cam Brothers. But I know it's something that you've also spent a lot of time kind of looking at, thinking about, analyzing, noodling over.
Yeah, I mean, I had thought about it really starting after game 1 when that one commenter left the comment on our YouTube section, just wondering about whether or not Reaves and D'Lo needed to be split up, and the idea of their similarities as players working better for them playing off each other than for the team as a whole, just because their strengths are pretty similar, but so are their weaknesses. And in particular, neither one of them being a defensive stopper or really the best defenders. Reaves is better than D'Lo, but neither one of them, I think, defense is their strength.
Reaves's strengths are stronger next to a guard who is better on ball.
Right, exactly. Or if you've got, Jared Vanderbilt in there, so, like different options, something like that. And especially considering Reaves's really difficult start to the season, but also just the offense not working, even taking into account the guys in and out of the lineup, rotations changing, all that different stuff. It just got me wondering, because frankly, something needed to change, period. And that's why when Darvin made this move with Austin going to the bench, I tweeted out at Cam Brothers, I liked it. It just felt like a change was necessary of some type. I think Reaves is the type who, he's not wired to rock the boat, even if he doesn't like it, but frankly had not played well enough to really argue. But I've been thinking about it more like in terms of how I think he could eventually affect the rotation at full strength. One of the reasons I like D'Lo starting over Reaves, if you have to break them up, and I think even when Vando comes back and you've got the full complement of selections, I think they're going to remain broken up.
As long as they keep winning.
Yeah. D'Lo and AD play very, very well off each other.
Mm-hmm.
And AD is, I think, very beneficial for D'Lo as a back line, considering, he is the weakest defensive guard that they have. But also, I think their 2-man game is very good. And AD tends to play for very long stretches in the first quarter. So to me, it makes a lot of sense to keep D'Lo out there for a long time with AD. But also, too, Reaves plays very well with LeBron in particular. And LeBron often starts those second quarters out there with a mix of reserves. So it makes sense to me to have Reaves getting more of his time tethered with LeBron. And then, again, like we talked about in yesterday's show, eventually you get to the fourth quarter, Reaves is going to be closing out a lot of these games, and I think that makes sense as well. And you look at what's happening right now with the Clippers and this very obvious move that needs to happen that it seems like they're trying very hard to avoid doing. I like that Darvin, we saw this last year with Russ. We saw this year with Reaves. Say what you will about him as a coach. He's not afraid, as much as he's a positivity guy and he's a player's coach guy, he's not afraid to make the move that he knows a player won't like.
Mm-hmm. I think that's true. But I also think in this particular case, the difference with Russ is Russ was being kind of like, they were trying to get Russ into a position where it made sense on every level, which was not just he's not starting games, but often he's not finishing them either. And that was, I think, what was harder. The difference between this, at least for now, is that Reaves, I think for the most part, is going to be on the floor to finish games. I think most games he's going to be, because Russell won't. I think we've seen the last two wins. D'Lo, who has played 30 minutes a night, 30 plus minutes, is not playing late in the fourth quarter.
I think unless they really need scoring, that's probably going to be the case.
Or somebody's out. And this is something we talked about in the preseason. It was obviously with the idea that maybe Vincent would be in because we assumed he'd be available, but he's not. But they have that sort of option there. And so Reaves can legitimately look at this and say, my role in terms of the amount of time I'm getting, the amount of responsibility I have, the ability I have to kind of go out there and do stuff and make things happen isn't really impacted because I am going to still play a lot. And I'm going to finish games, and my 35 minutes a night or 33 minutes a night or 30 to 35, whatever the number ends up being, is still going to be there. They just come in a different order. And all guys will say, Rui said it before the season, I care much more about finishing than I do starting. What I am really kind of fascinated to see is what it looks like when Vanderbilt comes back with that Russell Reaves combination. Because for everybody saying, it can't work, they're just getting cooked too much and this and that and whatever. Last season, if you go back and you look at their two-man numbers, and again, two-man lineup numbers don't say everything, but it's a good, decent shorthand. The net rating for those guys was a plus 22 in 280 something minutes. And so, I'm interested though. And then broadly, if you look at those guys, so that's generally with a lot of it with Vanderbilt on the floor. But I'm also interested, how much of the impact of those guys with positive net ratings when they play separately was related to Dennis Schroeder. And I looked that up. And both Reaves and Russell, when playing with Schroeder, had very positive net ratings as well. And so it's that combination. So what does it look like when Vincent is available? I am not convinced that they can't figure out a way to play Russell and Reaves together because I think there is, again, evidence that it can work. But I was just sort of I'm trying to think holistically about all the different factors that went into the types of lineups that they could put together with them together and with them separately to see what combinations work best.
Here's it's great that you brought up Schroeder because I think it raises a really good point about Vincent's eventual return, Reaves playing off the bench. Do you reunite D'Lo and Reaves in that starting unit once you have all your options? I think another point in favor of keeping Reaves on the bench is when Vincent comes back, he's not the same playmaker that Schroeder is. For all of Schroeder's score first tendencies and, the driving and stuff like that, Schroeder is, I think, a much better playmaker than Gabe Vincent. And I think comparatively to Vincent, he's more pass first compared to Vincent. So that's another reason why I feel like you want Reaves out there with a lot of that second unit, because otherwise I feel like you're starting to put more and more of that burden on LeBron, but also the offense starts to become more predictable. I think the more options you have out there to create plays, the less predictable it can be to defend whatever group is out there. And I think even when Vincent comes back, in a lot of ways, it doesn't just make sense to keep Reaves on the bench. It might even make more sense.
It could. And, Here's the thing. Like, there are a lot of different combinations they can try. There are a lot of different, things they could line up. I am all for using that sort of the first half of the season to experiment and see what you can maximize. Because, both because they have a track record of things that worked for them last year, which I do think that are worth revisiting. Because again, that combination of Reaves and Russell was really good on the floor together. They were not hurt by that. So what were those things that allowed that to thrive? They got to go back and figure all that stuff out.
Well, some of it was just both of them were making more shots than they are now.
And that's a lot of it. Like, Reaves, both of their net ratings are still underwater. And, I have been a big supporter. You've been a big supporter of D'Lo. Overall, he has a negative net rating. And for the people who say, defensively, he gives everything back, I guess there is some truth to that. I don't think
so far the whole team is giving everything back. If you're looking at net rating,
right? Almost the entire team is a negative, but some are more negative than others.
For what it's worth, D'Lo is on the closer to positive or at least neutral than most of the players. Right. Like if we're going to go down this net rating,
and Reaves' net rating for the first 5 games of the season, it was like a minus 26.
He was at the center of the earth.
As he said, when we were down by 19, that was probably my fault. And he has cut that down considerably. Yeah. To where the last few games it's been much more positive. The Lakers as a group have a lot of negative in there. So anybody who's played first quarters, particularly with the Lakers, can have a really hard time. If you have had the bad fortune of being on the court in the first 12 minutes, you probably have a negative net rating.
That's why Reaves was okay with going to the bench.
Right. He's going to improve my numbers.
To improve his net rating.
My analytics are going to improve.
Christian Wood's no, thank you. I'll stay off the bench.
And this is why we don't have time to get, we'll talk about it more, hopefully after tonight into tomorrow's game and all that kind of stuff. We didn't get into the schedule, but this is why games like tonight are so important, because they allow you the freedom. You win tonight, you're 6-5. You beat Sacramento. They probably will, might get De'Aaron Fox back even earlier than tomorrow's game. But he could be present. That's a very different team when De'Aaron Fox plays. Yeah. Maybe you lose to Sacramento. Okay, but now you go play Portland again. Go beat Portland. So you're still up, you're over 500. You're winning those games. Maybe you beat Houston at home. Like that kind of stuff. It gives you the flexibility to figure these lineup combinations out. If you're 4 or 5 games under 500, you don't. You have to win, and you don't have time to experiment.
In tonight's game, Memphis without Steven Adams, Brandon Clark, or John Morant, who's a really good offensive rebounder for a guard, they should have no business working the Lakers on their defensive glass. They average 10.6 offensive rebounds per game. Half of them are basically Bismack Biyombo. They're 17th in the league, in overall offensive rebounds per game. But if you look at offensive rebounding percentage, they're 22nd. This is a team, assuming you keep an eye on Biyombo, the Lakers should be able to keep this team off their offensive glass. There really just isn't an excuse for it.
We'll see. Locked On Lakers on YouTube is where you can go to see the show, hang out with nearly 22,000 subscribers, all of whom will be rooting for a Lakers win tonight against the Grizzlies. And we will see everybody tomorrow.